That's what Nikola Tesla thought as he watched the smile of the man in front of him. A perfectly aligned, almost artistic smile, but one that lasted exactly 2 seconds longer than it should have. That microscopic detail was enough. The man was lying. And Tesla knew this not through mystical intuition or social experience, but because he had discovered something that would take humanity decades to understand. The human body emits involuntary electrical signals before the mind even finishes constructing a lie. It was 1899, Colorado Springs. Tesla had just completed an experiment that would forever change his view of truth. He wasn't trying to detect lies. He was measuring atmospheric electrical discharges when he noticed something strange. Small fluctuations in the field around him whenever someone entered the room and spoke. Initially, he thought it was external interference, but when he began to write down the patterns, he discovered that there was a unique signature, an electrical micro-vibration that emanated from people moments before they said something false. It was as if the body knew the lie before the mouth uttered it. And at that exact moment, in front of that man with the over-rehearsed smile, Tesla was about to use this discovery deliberately for the first time. The man was James Morgan, chief engineer of a rival company. He had come with a proposal that was too generous to be true. They wanted to collaborate with Tesla, finance his projects, publicize his ideas, all in exchange for access to their laboratories and technical records. But Tesla noticed, as Morgan spoke, his left eyelid blinked in a slightly asymmetrical way. His fingers moved in a rhythm out of step with the tone of his voice. And even more telling, there was an almost imperceptible pause, less than half a second, between his words and the movement of his right hand. It was the body trying to support a lie that the mind was still fabricating. Tesla crossed his arms and tilted his head slightly without breaking eye contact. "Mr. Morgan, can I ask you a question?" he said in a calm voice. "Of course, Mr. Tesla. What do you want to know? Why did your company send 3 different people in the last 2 weeks to make me the exact same offer?" Morgan's smile faltered, just for a tenth of a second, but it was enough. Tesla continued now with a silent intensity that seemed to fill the entire room. "And why did each of them use almost identical words, as if reciting from a script? And why are you specifically touching your wedding ring every time you mention the word collaboration?" Morgan swallowed. It was a small gesture, imperceptible to most, but for Tesla, now trained in reading the invisible frequencies of the human body, that gesture was an electrical alarm screaming danger. He hadn't come to cooperate, he had come to steal, and Tesla was about to prove it in a way no one would have expected. If you feel like this story is awakening something different in you, something that makes you see the world from another angle, subscribe to the channel. Here, you will understand how Tesla saw beyond the masks people wear, and how you too can develop this power. Morgan tried to regain his composure, but his shoulders twitched slightly inward, a defensive movement that Tesla recognized immediately. "Mr. Tesla, I think there is a misunderstanding. My company just wants—" Tesla raised his hand, interrupting him with calculated kindness. "No need to continue. I know exactly what your company wants, and I know why you sent you specifically." Morgan frowned, trying to maintain the mask of innocent confusion. Tesla walked to the window with his back to his visitor, but watching his reflection in the glass. "You were chosen because you have a rare ability, Mr. Morgan. You know how to lie with conviction. Most people shake, sweat, look away, but you have learned to control these obvious reactions. That's why they thought I wouldn't understand." Morgan's reflection in the glass showed something that confirmed everything. He had stopped breathing for 2 whole seconds. It was the definitive sign. When someone holds their breath when hearing an accusation, it's not because they're offended, it's because they're calculating the next lie. Tesla turned around slowly. "What you don't know is that I've spent the last 8 months studying something that goes beyond what your employers imagine. I'm not just inventing electrical machines. I am mapping the invisible electricity that runs through every human being. And I discovered that lying creates a specific, detectable, measurable, energetic signature." Morgan finally dropped the smile. His voice came out deeper, more truthful. "Mr. Tesla, with all due respect, this sounds like fantasy." Tesla tilted his head. "Sound? So tell me, why is your right hand shaking now? But it wasn't shaking when you came in here." Morgan looked at his hand. It was shaking. He tried to hide it behind his back, but it was too late. "That doesn't prove anything," he muttered, but his voice had lost all authority. Tesla opened a drawer and took out a small device, something that looked like a combination between a stethoscope and a rudimentary electrical meter. There were copper wires wrapped around a glass coil, connected to a needle that oscillated slightly. This device measures variations in the electromagnetic field around a person. When you lie, your body generates an involuntary microcurrent. The needle responds to her. Morgan took a step back. "This is ridiculous." Ridiculous. Tesla approached, holding the device. Then accept a test. I will ask 3 questions. Answer truthfully in the first 2. Lie on the third, and let's see what happens. Morgan hesitated. His face was pale now, but to refuse would be to admit fear. Okay, he said, trying to sound confident. Tesla turned on the device. The needle began to oscillate gently. First question, were you born in New York State? Yes, Morgan replied. The needle continued to oscillate normally. Second question, do you work for Continental Electric Company? Yes. The needle maintained the same pattern. Tesla paused, watching Morgan's eyes. Third question, did you come here just to make a business proposal, with no other intention? Morgan opened his mouth, but took a second too long to respond. Yes, I came just for that. The needle jumped violently to the right, swayed erratically, and then stabilized. The silence that followed was deafening. Tesla turned off the device and placed it carefully on the table. Mr. Morgan, I'm going to make you a proposal. You leave here now. Go back to your employers and tell them I know everything. I know you want to steal my projects, replicate them and register them before me. I know there is a plan to discredit my work while you profit from it. And I know that you brought a small notebook hidden in the inside pocket of your jacket, where you intend to write down everything you saw here. Morgan froze. Like you, Tesla interrupted again, now with a firmness that made the air in the room seem thicker. Because I watch, because I read frequencies that you don't even know you're emitting, and because, Mr. Morgan, lying to me is like trying to hide an electrical storm under an umbrella. Morgan backed up to the door, his mask completely shattered. You can't prove any of this, he said, but his voice was weak, defeated. Tesla smiled for the first time. I don't need to prove it. You've already proven it for me. Now leave, and tell whoever sent you that Nikola Tesla is not a man who can be fooled by well-rehearsed smiles. Morgan left without saying anything else, slamming the door loudly. Tesla was left alone in the room, holding the device he had built. He knew this wasn't just a scientific tool. It was a weapon against falsehood, against power games, against those who believed that beautiful words were enough to hide dark intentions. But he also knew something more unsettling. If he could detect lies, so could others. And if this technology fell into the wrong hands, the world would become a place where no one could hide anything anymore. Not good, not evil, nor the secrets that some people need to keep to survive. He looked out the window and saw Morgan climbing into a carriage, but something was wrong. There was someone else waiting for him, someone Tesla didn't expect to see. Tesla narrowed his eyes. The figure next to the carriage was unmistakable. Thomas Alva Edison, the man Tesla once called his mentor, then his rival, and now recognized as something far more dangerous, an adversary willing to do anything to maintain his empire. Edison was not there by chance. This wasn't just industrial espionage, it was war. Tesla backed away from the window before Edison could see him watching. His heart raced, but his mind remained cold, calculating. If Edison was involved, the plan was bigger than stealing blueprints. Edison wanted to destroy it completely, and Morgan wasn't just a spy. It was bait, a test to measure how far Tesla had come in his discoveries. They wanted to know if I can really detect lies, Tesla muttered to himself, and now they know I can. That changed everything. Tesla could no longer simply defend his laboratories. He needed to act. But how to face a man who controlled newspapers, investors, and even politicians? How to defeat someone whose greatest weapon was not electricity, but the manipulation of public opinion? Tesla looked again at the device on the table. The answer was there, but not in the way he had initially imagined. He didn't just need to detect lies. I needed to predict who would lie. I needed to map the patterns of falsehood even before for the words to be spoken. And to do that, he would need something that no one had tried yet, recording the electrical signatures of different types of liars and creating a catalog of behaviors. For the next 3 weeks, Tesla worked in absolute secrecy. He hired 5 different assistants, each unaware of the other's work. He asked them to answer simple questions, some true, some false, while connecting enhanced versions of his device to each of them, registered hundreds of patterns. He noted how fear produces a different frequency than greed, how defensive lying generates a distinct vibe from predatory lying. But there was a pattern that deeply disturbed him. In all tests, without exception, there was one type of lie that the device was almost unable to detect, the lie that the liar believes to be true. When someone is so convinced of their own false narrative that their body no longer emits warning signals, the lie becomes invisible. And Tesla knew exactly who mastered this technique: Edison. Edison didn't lie out of nervousness or guilt. He lied with absolute conviction because he had trained himself to believe his own distortions. This made him immune to Tesla's device, or almost, because Tesla had discovered a flaw. Even the most skilled liars emit a micro-hesitation before starting to speak, a millisecond silence where the brain is still choosing which version of reality to present. And it was in this silence that Tesla found his weapon. He created a second version of the device, more sensitive, capable of capturing not the lie itself, but the pause before it. He called it the intention detector. He didn't mince words. It measures the moment when the mind decides to distort the truth. Then, one cold October morning, Tesla received a telegram. It was a formal invitation from Edison to dinner at his residence in New Jersey. The message was cordial, almost friendly. "I would like to discuss possibilities for future collaboration. No grudges from the past, just science." Tesla read the telegram 3 times, each word chosen with surgical precision, every comma in the perfect place. It was a trap, but it was also an opportunity. Tesla responded by accepting the invitation, but he asked for one condition, that Edison allow him to take an assistant and demonstration equipment. Edison immediately agreed, which confirmed Tesla's suspicions. Edison wanted to see him take the device. "I wanted to study it closely, maybe even steal it." But Tesla had a plan that Edison, with all his cunning, could never predict. The night before dinner, Tesla didn't sleep. He worked frantically assembling not one, but 3 devices that were identical in appearance but completely different in function. The first was the actual working detector. The second was a fake, a device that pretended to work but didn't detect anything. The third was something much more dangerous, an emitter. While the other 2 measured electrical signals, this one created them, generating subtle interference that made anyone nearby feel slight anxiety, an imperceptible but devastating psychological pressure for anyone trying to maintain a complex lie. Tesla boarded the train to New Jersey carrying a heavy suitcase. Inside it, the 3 devices. He didn't know which one he would use yet, but I knew that by the end of that night, a truth would be irreversibly revealed. When he arrived at Edison's mansion, he was received with exaggerated pomp. Edison greeted him with a handshake that was too firm, a smile that was too wide, a hospitality that seemed straight out of a theater. "Nikola, what a pleasure to have you here. I heard about your recent experiments. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating." Tesla bowed his head politely, but his eyes swept the surroundings. There were 5 other people in the room, engineers, lawyers, and a man Tesla recognized immediately, a New York Times journalist. This wasn't a dinner. It was a public ambush. Edison planned to discredit him in front of witnesses, but Tesla showed no reaction. He simply placed his suitcase on the table and said, with deadly calm, "Mr. Edison, before we have dinner, I would like to do a demonstration. After all, that's what I came for." Edison smiled, but Tesla noticed something crucial. He blinked twice in a row, too quickly. It was fear disguised as curiosity. "Of course, Nikola, show us what you brought." Tesla opened the suitcase slowly, savoring every second of tension. And then, he removed not the detector, not the fake, but the emitter. Edison had no idea what was about to happen. Tesla placed the device on the polished mahogany table, its copper wires shining in the candlelight. All eyes in the room were fixed on him. Edison kept his smile, but Tesla noticed that his fingers were drumming lightly on the edge of the chair, an irregular rhythm, anxious. "Gentlemen, this device doesn't just detect falsehood, it reveals intent. And tonight, we will find out who in this room came here with honest purposes, and who came with something to hide." The journalist leaned forward, fascinated. Edison gave a forced laugh. "Nikola, that sounds like a parlor trick. Science needs rigor, not spectacle." Tesla connected the device to a small battery, and the emitter began to vibrate with a barely audible hum, a frequency that made the hairs on your arms stand up without anyone knowing exactly why. "So let's test the accuracy, Mr. Edison. I'm going to ask each person here a simple question. You will respond, and this device will show if there is congruence between what they say and what they really feel." Tesla pointed to one of the engineers. "What is your name?" "Robert Chen, sir." Tesla observed the device. The needle remained stable. "True. Do you work for Mr. Edison?" "Yes. Work. Stable needle." "True." Tesla moved to the next one. "And you came here tonight knowing I would be invited?" The man hesitated. "Yes, I knew." The needle wobbled slightly but stabilized. Partial truth, but not a lie. Tesla continued, asking each person irrelevant details, creating a pattern, a baseline. Everyone responded with nervous honesty. And then, it was Edison's turn. Tesla looked directly into the eyes of the man who had once been his employer. "Mr. Edison, why did you invite me here tonight?" Edison opened his arms theatrically. "I told you, Nikola, I want to explore collaboration possibilities. The world of electricity is big enough for both of us." The needle shot violently to the right, swayed chaotically, and then began to shake. The transmitter was working. The psychological pressure was beginning to crack Edison's mask. Tesla said nothing, just watched. Edison shifted his position in the chair. Nikola, this device is obviously defective. Tesla remained motionless. Second question. Did you send James Morgan to my lab 3 weeks ago with instructions to gather information about my work? The silence that followed was absolute. Edison looked at the others in the room, then back to Tesla. His eyes no longer showed amusement. They demonstrated cold calculation. I don't know what you're talking about. The needle was now vibrating so violently that it began to produce a sharp metallic sound. Two of the engineers exchanged uncomfortable glances. The journalist began frantically taking notes. Tesla took a step forward. The sender was doing its job perfectly. The pressure was mounting, making maintaining his composure physically exhausting for Edison. Third question, and this is the most important. Did you plan tonight to publicly discredit my work in front of a press witness? Edison stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. Enough of this farce. You come into my house with your magic tricks and accuse me without any proof. Tesla kept his voice low, but each word came out like a scalpel. I don't need proof, Mr. Edison. Your own body is screaming the truth that your mouth refuses to say. It was then that Edison made the fatal mistake. In a fit of rage, he grabbed the device from the table and lifted it up. This is nothing more than wires and coils. There's nothing special. Any charlatan could build this. And in doing so, by directly touching the active emitter, Edison was hit by a concentrated discharge of psychological frequency. It wasn't physical pain. It was something much worse. It was as if all the lies he had constructed throughout his life were suddenly weighing on his mind at the same time. Edison let go of the device, staggered back, and for the first time in his life, Nikola Tesla saw Thomas Edison completely stripped of his trusty armor. The man's face was pale, sweaty, and then, to the shock of everyone in the room, Edison said something no one expected. Okay, he is well. Yes, I sent Morgan. Yes, I wanted your projects. And yes, I plan tonight to expose you as a lunatic in front of the press. The journalist stopped writing, mouth open. The engineers were frozen. Edison placed his hands on the table, breathing heavily. But do you know why, Nikola? Because you are dangerous. Your ideas are dangerous. You want to give free electricity to the whole world. He wants to dismantle the systems that men like me have built, and I can't allow that. Tesla turned off the device. The buzzing stopped. The tension in the room eased, but the damage was done. Edison had confessed, in front of witnesses, in front of a journalist. Mr. Edison, Tesla said calmly, you have just proved something far more important than any experiment I could demonstrate. You proved that the truth always finds a way to the surface. It doesn't matter how skilled the liar is, no imp how much power he has. The body never lies. Edison looked up, and for the first time Tesla saw something he never thought he would see, genuine shame. But it only lasted an instant. Edison recovered his posture, straightened his jacket, and said coldly, "Get out of my house." Tesla picked up his device, put it back in his suitcase, and walked to the door. But before leaving, he turned around one last time. I will publish everything I discovered, Mr. Edison, not to destroy it, but to let the world know that there is a way to see through the masks. And when people learn to detect falsehood, men like you will no longer be able to manipulate the truth. He left under everyone's astonished gaze. The journalist followed him to the street, desperate for details. But Tesla said nothing more. He simply got into his carriage and left. As the wheels turned over the stone path, Tesla looked out the window and saw Edison still standing in the mansion's entrance, a shadowy silhouette against the light, and Tesla knew he had won, not destroying Edison, but forcing him to destroy himself with his own words. But there was something Tesla didn't know, something that would only be revealed weeks later. Edison was not alone in that plan, and the person who actually orchestrated it all was someone much closer to Tesla than he would have ever imagined. 3 weeks later, Tesla received a letter. It had no return address, just a postage stamp from Colorado Springs, the place where it all began. He opened the envelope cautiously and found a single sheet of paper with elegant, almost feminine handwriting. It just said, "You thought you won, but not all lies come from enemies. Sometimes they come from those you trust most. Check your main assistant." Tesla felt a chill run down his spine. His main assistant was Michael Adler, a brilliant young engineer who had worked with him for almost 2 years. It was impossible. Michael had unrestricted access to the laboratories, the projects, the most secret experiments. If he were a traitor, everything Tesla had built would be compromised. But Tesla couldn't ignore the message. That same night, when Michael arrived at the laboratory, Tesla was already waiting. He had set up the intent detector again, but this time hidden, behind a control panel. Michael greeted him with his usual enthusiasm. "Good evening, Mr. Tesla. I brought the new coils you ordered." Tesla nodded. "Michael, I need to ask you some questions, just to confirm some calculations." Michael frowned slightly but smiled. "Of course. What do you need to know?" Tesla observed the hidden detector while asking the first question. Did you record all the measurements from Tuesday's experiment? Yes, I recorded everything. Stable needle. True. Did you send the reports just to me, as I asked? Yes, just for you. Stable needle. True. Tesla paused. Have you had contact with anyone at Continental Electric Company in the last 6 months? Michael hesitated. Just a second, but it was enough. No, I never had contact with them. The needle went off. Tesla closed his eyes. The pain he felt at that moment was not physical. It was something much deeper. It was the feeling that the entire world had become a place where no one could be trusted. Michael, Tesla said calmly, I will give you a chance. One chance to tell me the truth. Michael swallowed. Mr. Tesla, I don't know what you're talking about. Tesla revealed the detector. He pointed to the needle still vibrating wildly. Your body knows, and I know. Now tell me, how much did they pay you? The silence that followed was devastating. Michael looked at the floor. When he finally spoke, his voice was broken. They didn't pay me, Mr. Tesla. They threatened my family. They said that if I didn't provide information, my father would lose his job. My sister would be exposed in manufactured scandals. I had no choice. Tesla felt anger rising, but also something he hadn't expected. Compassion. He knew what it was like to be manipulated by powerful men. He knew what it was like to have his choices taken away. You always had a choice, Michael. It could have come to me. You could have trusted me. Michael looked up, and there were tears in them. I was afraid, sir. I was afraid that you wouldn't be able to protect me. And I was right, wasn't I? They are too powerful. Tesla walked to the window, looking out at the starry night. Power is an illusion, Michael. They are not powerful. They only control the tools that society values. Money, reputation, connections. But there is something they can never control. The truth. And the truth always finds a way to reveal itself. Tesla turned back to Michael. You're leaving now, and you're going to tell whoever manipulated you that I know everything, and that nothing you gave them was real. Michael's eyes widened. What? Tesla smiled, but it was a melancholy smile. I knew 3 years ago. Only weeks there was a traitor. I found out when Edison confessed. He mentioned details that only someone from within my laboratory could have provided. So I started feeding you false information, projects that don't work, wrong calculations, unfounded theories. Everything you passed on to them is useless. Michael froze, processing the revelation. So you used me? Tesla nodded slowly. I used it because I needed to protect the real work, but also because I needed to teach you a lesson that I myself learned the most painful way. There is no shortcut to the truth. You tried to serve 2 masters, and now it doesn't belong to any of them. Michael left the laboratory that night, crestfallen, destroyed. Tesla watched him go and felt a deep sadness, not for betrayal, but because he realized something terrible. His lie detection device, that tool he created to defend the truth, could also be used to destroy lives, to manipulate, to control. In the wrong hands, it would be as dangerous a weapon as any bomb. 2 days later, Tesla dismantled all the devices, burned the plans, destroyed the records, and he wrote in his personal diary, I discovered a truth that humanity is not yet ready to know. The body never lies. But to teach this to the world would be to give people the power to destroy each other with scientific precision. Better that this discovery die with me. But Tesla knew that the truth does not die. She just waits. Decades later, science would rediscover what he had found. They would call it micro-expressions, body language, neuroscience. They would create polygraph machines, facial detection algorithms, artificial intelligence to identify lies. And the world would become exactly what Tesla feared, a place where no one could hide anything, but where trust became impossible. While writing, Tesla looked out the window and saw the night sky. The stars shone with the same indifference as always, and he understood the ultimate lesson. Truth is powerful, but wisdom lies in knowing when to reveal it and when to protect the world from its own power, because not every truth needs to be told, and not every secret needs to be revealed. Sometimes the most honest act is to remain silent. Tesla closed the diary and turned off the light in the laboratory. He walked home under the cover of night, carrying with him the weight of knowledge the world would never know he possessed. And in that silence, in that darkness, he found a strange peace. The peace of those who chose to protect humanity from itself. If this story touched something inside you, if you recognize the value of seeing beyond the masks without becoming a prisoner of that vision, subscribe to the channel. Here, you will learn not only how to detect falsehood, but the wisdom necessary to know what to do with that perception. Because seeing the truth is a gift, but knowing when to act on it is wisdom. And Tesla taught us that sometimes the greatest power lies not in revealing what we know, but in carefully choosing what the world is ready to receive.